Welcome to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. But before I do, I gotta sip on the good morning here because it's the morning at this time of recording. So let's get into the news. Only a short time ago, online. Maul Shadow Lord, there is a clip for the up-and-coming animated series that is coming less than a couple of weeks now, I think now. And yes, it is a short animated clip, and more of my thoughts about that in the view section later on. But check it out. It goes for about 30 seconds. Check that out. To more news, The Mandalorian and Grogu tickets still are not on sale. I think this is, I'm actually really thinking it's going to be down to the week of release. You'll get tickets. There's not a huge demand, believe it or not, for this particular Star Wars film. So I will be surprised if we get a ticket launch other than in the week of the release. In Australia, it will be the May 21. The rest of the world is May 22nd. It's technically the same date, just we are ahead of time here. Pretty much it's going to be very close to the same timing. But no tickets are on sale as yet. And that is the news for this time around. And now let's get into the views. Views is my story ideas about Star Wars. I accept the story for what it is. From the start to finish, I accept it. You know, whether I love it or hate it or whatever, but I accept it. Now, this is going to be pushing the point of how much I accept it. We just got a Maul Shadow Lord clip online. This is after the last trailer, which was quite action-packed. And it sort of shows police officers in pursuit of a criminal gang or activity. And then appears Maul. Now, my story idea, ever since The Last Jedi, now I like The Last Jedi. I think it's original. I think there's many things about it that is good. I'm more of a liker than a disliker. That could be controversial to yourself, I don't know. But I like the originality to it. But one of the worst things in that particular film, just as an idea, and this is my idea to say that's not a good idea, in a funny way of putting it, is having police officers in Star Wars. You know, it's a grey area in the logic of Star Wars. You know, stormtroopers technically are like police officers. They are like the police officers, or maybe the army. It depends on how you interpret it. But I always interpreted the stormtroopers, or whatever troopers, as the more like law enforcement and of the galaxy. And when I see police in Star Wars, it makes me cringe. I just think, oh my goodness. And the first time we saw this was in The Last Jedi. Maybe in extended universe, but in the canon it was The Last Jedi. And in this particular clip, Maul, Shadow Lord, it has police officers. I just cannot stand police officers in, not because my dislike or like for police officers, but the logic of having police officers in such a war-torn galaxy is a bit ridiculous. That's my story idea. The story idea is not to have that story idea. Can you believe it? Not to have police officers in Star Wars. That's my story idea. Not because of any dislike about police officers, but because it just does not suit the galaxy. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. But I accept the story for what it is, and they're there. That's my views for this time around. Let's get into reviews. Reviews this time around is a couple of action figures I got. At the time of Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace. Just going to take a midichlorian pill. Goes to Michael from wherever he's out. But anyway, the time of Attack of the Clones, figures were coming out, in their sort of droves and stuff like that. It's still great. It was, the packaging was different. It was sort of exciting at that point. I didn't love the Attack of the Clones packaging. It didn't really look like the actual movie itself. It looked more like nostalgia packaging. But a couple of figures that came out had nostalgia, like old school figures in miniature sort of form, but in the actual figurine packages. And these were a couple here. This here is the Land Speeder. That's in, remember, A New Hope, Star Wars the original. That was a particular figure that came out. I thought, boy, they have one of those. That's great. A New Hope in the Tatooine Desert. This is a 10 out of 10. Not so much in the packaging, but still, it works. And then and another one I had, which is of the same sort of series. And this one here is the ship that C-3PO and R2-D2 came crashing into Tatooine, and there's a stormtrooper on top of one of those alien horses, let's call it. I've misplaced the name, can you believe it again? But this here, that's a 10 out of 10. These two here, these two pieces, 10 out of 10 for this packaging. Look at it, it's beautiful. This is my review. This is the part of the Attack of the Clones range when it came out, but it's not in Attack of the Clones. It just came out at the same time. It's got the same sort of back card as the Attack of the Clones that came out. That was in Australia, maybe at least. I don't know if it came out in the rest of the world, but this is time of the Attack of the Clones. And these figures are now 23 years old. Can you believe it? That is amazing. It's 23 years ago, roughly about 23 years ago. Anyway, that is my review. 10 out of 10 for those particular figures. Let's get into now the interviews. Interviews is comments left on my last particular video. Please send it to the actual YouTube video, as I don't really have an Instagram or anything else at the moment. I'm just sort of getting things done slowly but surely. More slowly than surely, but I really just enjoy getting the messages directly to YouTube. It sort of makes it a bit easy for you guys and me, and we can have a bit of a discussion. If you've got any comments that is appropriate for the channel, questions, trivia questions, again, I'm not Mr. Trivia, but I can do my best. Anyway, let's get into the questions. And Michael from Werribee South, he dominates the charts again. But anyway, anyone can ask questions. And while I'm on this tip, subscribe to the channel, The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the news, the views, reviews, and everything. Anyway, so let's get on with the questions. Now, first question is, the Holdo maneuver. Does Vice Admiral Holdo's hyperspace kamikaze move into The Last Jedi break the logic of the Star Wars universe, or was it a one-time desperate act? So what Michael's referring to is when Holdo, the lady with the purple hair, decided to go hyperspace into an Imperial cruiser, whatever you want to call it, and destroy it. To be honest, that was an absolute highlight, one of the highlights in The Last Jedi. It was in The Last Jedi. It was like the sound of that particular moment, because there was a dead silence, and then there was an after effect of a sound of an explosion or whatever. The impact, is sort of personally losing that particular person, sort of suiciding technically, in order to save the alliance, that's a rebel alliance, and get away from the bad guys. Not the Empire at that point, but it was the First Order. And I thought it was a great little moment in Last Jedi. But anyway, does it break the logic? Well, Star Wars logic is Star Wars logic. There's nothing really to break in Star Wars logic. There's nothing about that scene that breaks the logic of Star Wars. It's just a Star Wars thing. There's no logic to break. It was just, as it was, a mission to destroy the enemy. And I wouldn't call it a desperate act in such, of in the point of, desperation. I'd probably call it more heroic act. That's what I would say. So the answer is, or was it a one-time desperation act, or does it break the logic? I'd say no. It was a great heroic moment in The Last Jedi. Check it out. The next question, Empire management. Putting ethics aside, was the Empire actually better at managing and bringing order to the galaxy than the New Republic? Very interesting question. I think fear really dominated the Empire's agenda without sort of saying it in the beginning. But then time progressed in the galaxy and the Empire became, sort of disliked. I think, when you have fear, people sort of react to that, act to that, everything with that. I don't think it's the way, personally. I'm for the rebels. In fact, if I buy anything that's, if I buy a t-shirt or a sticker that has the Imperial logo or the Sith logo, I avoid it. I actually buy things that is of the Jedi or the good side. My lightsaber, my two lightsabers I've got is the Rey Skywalker and the Anakin Skywalker / Luke Skywalker lightsaber. I just buy the things that are about good. I like to sort of mark my stuff with good. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Imperials have got a great look. I mean, the red lightsaber, it looks beautiful, but it's bad. Anyway, so putting ethics aside, was the Empire actually better at managing and bringing order to the galaxy than the New Republic? With fear, yes, but technically, no. It's my answer. So the next question by Michael from Werribee South. Han versus Greedo. Who shot first? While the 1977 original shows Han shooting later, special editions edited the scene. Which version do you consider canon? I consider canon the latest version that was created of any Star Wars. The latest. And when I say that, George Lucas had manipulated, in a good way, his original trilogy many times. Not just with the special editions, but even after that. And to accept the story for what it is, and to also know when you are a creator in anything, you do leave your project, whether it's music or movies or a painting, and you go, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I could have added that. I wish I could have subtracted that. It's just a part of creativity. It's just always on creators' minds. And I respect that and I get that because I create not just videos, I do other things outside of this. And who shot first? Well, it's the final edition of what we have actually, if you want to see it, is on Disney Plus. You can watch it. It's in the first part of the film of A New Hope, Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4. And that is the one I accept upmost final. That was the decision at that time of George Lucas, then bought by Disney, but they've left it as it is because in respect, I'd say respect. Now, I'm not telling you who shot first in the latest edition. I've not watched that particular scene for a while. I've been a bit more interested in keeping up to date with the new stuff and AI type stuff on YouTube. But, it's one of those things in Star Wars, the Han vs. Greedo scene, who shot first, is something that's just blown out of proportion. And it makes me laugh, but it makes me go wonder. And it makes me think, well, who did shot first? It's just all those things in one. But anyway, I accept the final draft, whether there has been a draft beforehand that's been released, which was in 1977, the final draft, whenever Lucas sold it, which was I think about 2013, that is the final draft of that film, and that is who shot last, first, whatever. That's my answer. The next question from Michael from Werribee South is the prophecy. How did Anakin Skywalker actually bring balance to the Force? Was it by reducing the Jedi to equal the Sith's numbers, or by killing the Emperor in Return of the Jedi? Neither. It was all about he was in the prophecy, the one that would bring balance to the Force. And when he turned to the dark side, we all thought, as viewers and probably in the Star Wars universe, what's going on? How can this be balanced? But then when he did kill the Emperor and he did die, it became balanced. The Force became balanced. Good and bad become balanced. That's the balance. So really, you could say that was it by killing the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. That's partially right, but it's also his life had to go as well. But then he was then transitioned into the good side after death, as we saw in one of the classic redos by George Lucas at the end of Return of the Jedi, having Anakin Skywalker be played by Hayden Christensen, the young, normal version of Hayden Christensen, be the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. So he's now a part of the good. He's hanging out with Yoda, Obi-Wan, getting to know the other Jedi, possibly killed, things like that. So yeah, it's all about his life had to go, the Emperor's life had to go, and the galaxy was in peace because the Force was in balance. Anyway, so the next question and the final question from Michael from Werribee South is Jedi ethics. Is the Jedi Order actually good, or are they just pragmatic counterpoint to the Sith? Is it ethical for them to take Force-sensitive children from their families at such a young age? That's really interesting because, taking kids very young just because they've got the Force ability and saying, well, you're going to be rocking the Force with me, it's a little bit forceful in a strange way of putting it. Look, I think the Jedi, the whole Star Wars thing in 1977, all the way, I'd say, into the early 90s, even a bit beyond that, Jedi was a representation of good. It was not such a representation of, this sort of, this group that had, all these rules, and it was just, it was just being a part of an organization like the rebellion that was fighting for good, for the actual good. But the Jedi had rules, and they were like an organization. So I do think they shot themselves in the foot a number of times, the Jedi. I will still say I'm a Jedi in regular life, because it's about saying I'm good. Nowadays, when we've got to know the story a bit more, Jedi has become, all these rules that went, it contradicted a lot of things, and, sort of really, they became a little bit arrogant and naive. Yes, and all that happened. But I just think at the end of the day, taking kids from their families in a forceful manner is not good. But I don't know if it was forceful to that point. I don't think they robbed them. I think they heavily suggested that, this person could do this, be a part of our organization, which is the Jedi Order. But yes, there is lots of grey area, as we've come to discover in Star Wars with the Jedi, which is sort of good, because everything on planet Earth and everything in planet Star Wars, there's always going to be grey areas, black and white and grey. And it's good that Star Wars has become less black and white but more grey, because there's lots of intricacies that just get overlooked. And I think one of the biggest intricacies, a big problem that still really is not answered, is that, Anakin Skywalker turning to Darth Vader. Darth Vader was a mass murderer. Yet he went to the good side after death. Come on. Now, I accept the story for what it is, but come on. That's a little bit out of whack there. Now, this is something that George Lucas, wrote. Don't get me wrong, I love George Lucas. I love him. And I think he's great. I went on a date one day and said to the girl, the girl said to me, this is real, a girl said to me, who's your most inspirational person ever? And I said, George Lucas. And from that point, she nearly walked out. Or she actually walked out, yeah. I love George Lucas. Just to give you an example, I do love George Lucas. But there was things that he, wrote that I think needs to be answered. You can't just kill all these people, get away with it, and that's it. But anyway, that's another story. We may see in Starfighter. I don't know. But apparently Starfighter, to this day, is going to, which is a movie coming out in 2027, the next real big Star Wars film, is meant to be completely brand new. But anyway, let's wait for that. But to get back to the question by Michael from Worby South, the Jedi ethics were a little bit, upside down. But overall, the Jedi is a symbol of good. And that's it. Come to the end of the show now. And please, like, share this video. Subscribe to the channel, The Force Always. Again, I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the news, the views, reviews, and interviews. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.